Hey everyone, my name is Jessica Whitaker. I am a professional photographer based out of New York City. I'm also the founder of a nonprofit called Build and Bloom, which brings free photography and business education to young photographers across the globe. In this video, I'm going to be reading off the most common misconceptions and the assumptions, reacting to the assumptions about photographers, the photography industry, having a photography business as a whole. I saw one of my favorite Instagram influencers, JC Marie Smith, do this video on bloggers and influencers, and I thought it would be really fun to do my own take when it comes to photographers. We have some really good assumptions in this video that I'm excited to address, and hopefully it will just provide education and insight to those who aren't photographers and aren't in the industry, but who wonder, why is photography so expensive? Don't you just click a button? Doesn't better camera equal better photographer? Can't Photoshop fix everything? I'm excited to get into the video, but before I do, I'm going to link below my free photography Facebook group called Build and Bloom. It's one of Facebook's most highly engaged photography communities, and it's built off of the concept of less me, more we. Build and Bloom is also my nonprofit. The Facebook group started it all, and you can click below to join for free. Join 60,000 other amazing, encouraging creatives over there. I just want to do an emphasis on the fact that this video, all of my videos, are from a place of love, and I'm not going to drag somebody for not being informed or educated on why photographers charge what they charge or why we are the way that we are. I don't feel like that's fair, because why would the average consumer have any idea of what goes into running a photography business if they've never done it or care to do it? It just doesn't make sense, and I don't feel like that comes from a place of love. Trying to bring a refreshing perspective on the industry as a whole, because it really does need that. The first assumption is any camera can do it all. Definitely a false assumption. You know, some cameras are way more equipped for video. A crop sensor versus a full frame, it's going to make a big difference when it comes to just the overall quality of the image if you are wanting to print it out onto a big canvas. But we cannot expect the clients or customers to understand that. And so to me, it makes sense that people would assume, oh, a DSLR can do everything that you need it to, including Photoshop within the camera, but that is totally false. And for you as a photographer, you buying a Mark IV doesn't mean that it will suit your specific needs for your specific business. The next one reads, why it is important to develop a good contract for clients. And this is a weird way of me wording this as a question, but it's more to inform clients who are watching this video why it's important that you are signing a contract or an agreement with a photographer. A contract, a photography agreement, is going to protect you and the photographer and just map out everything. Clear communication, clear as day, crystal clear, what to expect from the photographer, the timeline, the turnaround, editing, how many photos, what time to show up on the location, what time the photo shoot ends, just as a tool in the business to keep everything crystal clear and save both of you time and confusion. If you guys are interested in any kind of contract templates or resources, that is part of a business advice that I cannot give out, because guess what? I'm not a lawyer, but I can refer you to an amazing contract template over on my favorite client management software. I'm gonna link it down below. You can sign up and do the free trial, and then in the free trial, you'll explore a ton of different contract templates, from the standard portrait photography, wedding photography, to boudoir, and even styled shoots and model release forms. It's such a great tool for those in the business. It's awesome. I will link it down below, but it's just really important to protecting you and your photographer, or you as a photographer and your client. The next assumptions are really good. It's the ones we've all been waiting for, and it's about Photoshop and editing. I got so many good ones on this. What's actually really funny, these are all like asking about Photoshop and how clients are like, wait, you don't use Photoshop? Don't all photographers use only Photoshop? We can Photoshop anything. let's be real, most of us photographers are using Lightroom for our editing, not Photoshop. Photoshop is kind of coined as like the universal term for just shaving off a few pounds, removing any major blemishes, changing the color of the sky. The universal term, I suppose, for what the average person is going to think editing really entails. We do not Photoshop everything, and actually Photoshop is a program all itself. I don't Photoshop my images. I use Lightroom, and most people do too. Now, when it comes to Photoshop as the term that we're all thinking of, clearing out any imperfections, I hate that word because we're just humans, adjusting the body at all to be more ideal. I have it on my website on an FAQ that says I don't do Photoshop. When I write it on my site though, and if you're gonna write it, I do have to be specific and give examples on what that means. I say I still edit my photos, but I do not do any kind of, let's say, stretch mark removal, let's say making any major adjustments. I don't do any kind of retouching in that sense, and I make it clear. Now, some photographers do. I have friends who do retouching, and they do it in a really beautiful, light, natural way, but when I'm on location and a client's like, well, you can just Photoshop that later. Let's say there's a piece of trash on the ground or something that I could just easily do in camera and remove. I would prefer to do it in camera than Photoshop it, aka use the clone stamp in Lightroom. And I also don't think that it makes me any less of a photographer because I don't retouch or because I choose to use Lightroom over Photoshop. It's just a personal preference, and there's nothing wrong with retouching as long as you're doing it in a natural way that still replicates what the client actually looks like, in my opinion. When it comes to fashion photography, product photography, that's a whole different ball game. But I'm talking about people on their wedding day. I'm talking about senior portraits, family photos, that kind of thing, because that's what I teach on and that's the kind of photography that I do. But even with fashion photography, there are some amazing brands that don't retouch their models for the better, such as Aerie and Outdoor Voices, two brands that sell underwear, loungewear, and activewear. I think it's really awesome that those brands choose to not retouch their images, because that kind of clothing, underwear and activewear, is kind of super vulnerable and it shows a lot of our body, and I think it's awesome that they choose not to retouch their images so that the consumer who's shopping online doesn't have to compare themselves to these unrealistic and not even real bodies out there and what they should be looking like, even when it comes to not just the body, but how the skin is airbrushed and soft and free of hair. And then how much time we take to edit photos. We don't just paste on a filter and call it a day. Definitely a false assumption that we just slap a filter on it and move on. Even when it comes to filters, if we're developing our own, there's still so much time that goes into it and into perfecting it for the certain lighting situations. Next assumption is all you do is click a button, that we only work for the 30 minutes while we're on a location, and then also people just think that it's taking photos, so just clicking a button, no editing, emails, website, etc. All of this is definitely so false. It's not just us coming and photographing you and then leaving. If you've ever gotten your photos done by a photographer or you're in the process, chances are you communicated with them before the shoot, during the shoot, obviously, and on location, and then after the shoot as well. There is so much more that goes into the photography business as a whole, beyond even your photo shoot, but also the marketing. How did you even find that photographer? It's because they put in so many hours into their website, into their social media, into Facebook ads, into so much external things that you don't even see that happen behind the scenes of it. Okay, if you're a photographer, we've all heard this. You must have a nice camera. Your camera takes great photos. They have expensive equipment. That's why they take good pictures. So all of these are definitely false. Just because you have a good camera and lens combination doesn't mean your photos are going to be better if you do not know how to use the camera and lens combo. Of course, a more expensive camera, a better camera, is going to ideally take better photos, higher files, better color, but if you don't know how to operate it, it's not going to perform well unless you know how to fully use the camera. So I suppose this one would be a true assumption. Better camera means better quality if the photographer knows what they're doing, but anyone can buy a $3,000 camera. It doesn't mean that they're gonna even know how to turn it on though. Next one is people assume that the more images, the better. It's quality, not quantity, my friend. The average client is going to assume that 400 images is better than 40, and the reality is that we're editing out a lot of duplicates, a little bit blurry images, maybe if you're talking mid-shot or if you're eating. I'm not holding back any images. It's just part of the process of culling is you probably don't want to view yourself in this image because it's not so flattering because you are mid-sneeze. Next one is kind of similar to that. Clients think we'll give them 3,000 photos. Definitely something that's not going to happen because again, a lot of them are just duplicates or didn't turn out or the lighting was funky or you're testing the lighting. We're not holding back photos from you. I'm talking to the clients out there, and again, this is all from a place of love and not from being snarky or sassy. I can't blame you for not knowing this if you've never been informed. We're just removing those unflattering images so that you can truly see yourself in the best light possible. Next assumption is that we always have clients, and this is so false. During the winter months especially, is such a slower season. Photographers have to get creative with how we're gonna get bookings during the New York City winter. Clients don't want to go outside and have their portraits taken in anything under 40 degrees. This is a season that some photographers do more studio work. Maybe they invest into their marketing, their education, redoing their site. It looks different for everyone, but the assumption that we always have clients is definitely false. Even me, who I have been doing photography for 12 years, pursuing it for 8 on the side of school, my 9 to 5, my full-time job. I didn't start doing full-time freelance photography until a year ago, which you can watch a video I'll link up on iCard about that because I think it's really encouraging to anybody who wants to quit their job, but they have to use wisdom in it. I think that video will really encourage you. Even now, I don't always have photography clients, but I have found a way and a strategy to be able to work smarter, not harder, as cheesy as that sounds. I would rather have 3 photo shoots a month that make me 2 times more than I did when I had 10 photo shoots booked a month. That's totally possible. I built a whole online photography workshop about how to market to your dream ideal client. I'll link it down below, as well as with a over $200 off coupon code if you're interested. I don't want this video to seem like I'm plugging everything, but I have been teaching on photography for 3 years here on YouTube. I have a lot of great tools and resources to reference you to, especially if you're new to my channel. Next assumption is the more popular, the better the work. People in my city pay for the name of the photographer, but the more popular, the better the work is definitely not always true. Just because somebody has a K, meaning 1,000, next to their Instagram following does not mean that they're a better photographer or that their talent is instilled in how many people follow them on social media. So that's a false assumption that the more followers someone has, the more professional they are, the more talented they are, the quicker that they'll get you their images. You know, I don't think that somebody's follower count should be something that factors into why you want to book their services, especially for something as important as a wedding. Next assumption is that it's just a matter of talent. Well, actually, you have to practice a lot, just like playing an instrument. Definitely a false assumption. It's not just about having the eye for photography. Well, I definitely think that plays a big factor into just how you view things through your lens and how you set up the shots. It does require practice because you're tackling a whole new kind of machine, a piece of machinery. We're also in the business of people, so it's definitely about blending not only our passion for photography, but also delivering an excellent customer service experience for making the people in front of your lens feel confident in posing them. There are as photographers watching, there are so many other factors that go into it other than just the pure talent behind it, and it does require practice. If you're just starting out, I really encourage you to practice with friends and family, and if you want to learn more about the whole business behind photography, more than I can even get to in a YouTube video, I'll have, again, my online photography workshop linked down below. Hiring a photographer is expensive. Short answer, yes, it is expensive, especially when it comes to wedding photography, but there is a reason for that, which we'll talk about in a minute. Next one is, why are you so pricey? You're only taking a photo. That we get rich off of photo shoots. Clients don't understand why we charge what we do. We sometimes have to buy props. Clarifying why wedding photography is so much more of an investment, all the work involved, and that the only expense is the camera. Photography is way too expensive. I really would love to make a video all about why we charge what we do in the same kind of way where it's coming from a place of love. So seriously, if you would like to see this video, let me know in the comments below, whether you're a photographer or you are a client. I think it'd be interesting, but for a little brief explanation and for sake of the time of this video, there is so much more than just the camera and the lens. There's the SD card, there's the backups, there's all the software, there's the time that goes into it and other expenses. There's the gas, the parking. There's so much more that goes into photography that factors into our pricing, and we're really only making a small percentage of take-home profit that we get to keep for our groceries out of the photo shoot. So much of that money goes into not only taxes, but back into the business and in our recurring expenses. Let me know if you'd like me to make that video, because I would be more than happy to. Of course, and unfortunately, we have the one of parents don't think it's a real job. Photography isn't a real job, it's just photos. We're not doing much to deserve the money. A lot of my friends and family assume my job is creative and fun all the times and forget that I do run a business, that this isn't a real job, it's a side thing or a hobby. Of course, this assumption is false. Photography can be a real job if you're making money for it, you're, presenting yourself in a professional manner and you're running that business aspect, then of course it's a real job. But we can't blame people for not knowing if all they're seeing is our post on Instagram of us chilling and editing in our pajamas, if that's all that they're seeing. But of course, photography is a real job. There's so much behind the scenes that people don't see. So if you feel like there are some people in your personal life, like your parents or your siblings, maybe even your significant other, that just doesn't understand, why don't you try to explain it to them or show them more of those behind the scenes aspects? And I think that could help. But for the people who are just kind of hating on you and who don't know you personally and think it's a joke, I wouldn't even worry about those people. The next one is all about the turnaround time for the photos. So we can just edit and retouch an entire shoot in less than 24 hours. Then we can just text you the images the second we leave. Why can't I get my photos back right away? And my favorite one that kind of explains everything in a sense, that photos are finished straight out of the camera and we hold them hostage from the clients. You guys, photographers are not holding the photos hostage from you. It does take a lot of time to go through the photos, pick the best ones, edit them to perfection, exporting them, especially if you have an older computer like myself, backing them up and then delivering them, even the delivering part depending on your Wi-Fi speed. Photographers are not holding the images hostage, but you can ask them before the shoot when you're initially contacting them, if they don't have this listing on their website, what their turnaround time is, so that it's really clear for you, so that you have that set expectation. We're almost done here. Aren't these so good? I hope that you're enjoying these. The next one is, if you're a photographer, you must just be a wedding photographer. And that being a photographer means you can be hired for every kind of photography. Absolutely false. Photographers usually specialize in a few different areas, whether it's weddings and engagements and couples. Senior portrait photographers, there's a whole category for newborns, maternities, and I'm not saying that a maternity photographer can't take graduation photos, but usually we choose to specialize in either what will make us the most money in our area. Sometimes we do have to stick with shooting weddings because the only way we can make photography work for us in the season of life we're in right now is if we choose to do weddings as opposed to fashion photography, because there just isn't that market for fashion photography, but there is for weddings. It doesn't mean that they can't, it just means that people usually specialize in one area. Lastly, that we only want to photograph models, that we only want to take photos of thin and beautiful people. This definitely is going to depend on the person. I'm not going to say that this is a false assumption, because there are photographers out there who only want to work with the, European false beauty standard. I don't know how to word that specifically, but there are people out there who choose to only photograph certain body types, as well as blonde hair, blue eyes, light skin, tall, skinny. There's nothing wrong with having blonde hair, blue eyes, being tall and skinny, but I think that it is so important to have diversity in your photography portfolio, especially if you are wanting to work with the average everyday person. If you're wanting to photograph weddings, if you're wanting to do engagements, boudoir, maternity, family photos, senior photos, graduations, bloggers, you need to have a wide array of people in your portfolio, different body types, different skin tones. It's so important to have representation in your photography portfolio, especially if you have any kind of following. We need to welcome diversity and highlight diversity. I'm not just talking about in skin tone and hair color and eye color, but in body type, in gender identity. If we are in the business of people, then we need to be able to make that room for every kind of person to see your work and see themselves that they could be within that you welcome that in. And it's not that prevalent, especially when it comes to like mainstream media and what we are seeing always on TV. It's not always there. But if we can start within our own photography businesses and with the photographers who do have a platform, whether it's small, like me, I don't have that big of a platform, or massive and major, I think it's so important to highlight diversity in every way that we can so that everyone can feel welcome here. And I really hope that those who are watching, the photographers here, the next time you have a styled shoot, the next time you have the opportunity to cast a model, I really hope that you take this into consideration. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this video helped you out, informed you, educated you from a place of love and not a place of coming off as snarky or sassy. That's just not my vibe. I love you guys, I believe in you, and I want to educate you and encourage you. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You subscribing enables me to continue to bring free tutorials and education on YouTube outside of my online workshop. Leave a comment below. It takes you 30 seconds. If you enjoyed this video, I want to know your thoughts too. What are also some misconceptions that you run into that maybe I missed in my video? Comment. It helps me out so much on YouTube. If you enjoy something, show it some love, because you never know how long it will last for. Build and Bloom is linked down below, my free photography Facebook group, as well as our nonprofits website and networking groups. I have my online photography workshop below. I also want to encourage you, if you love these YouTube videos, you like what you see here on YouTube, you're going to love my Instagram. That's a place I can connect with you on a daily basis and share even more free tools, free resources through my stories. I do Instagram live Q&As all the time where I can answer your specific questions about your specific business. Find me over on Instagram at Jessica Whitaker. Be sure to subscribe once again. I love you, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.